What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show, bringing you all the action from the Premier League in Serie A, England, and Italy. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you?
Ciao a tutti. Sono benissimo. La vita è bella. I'm good, man. I'm good. You know.
Dom, that was convincing mother tongue speak that we just got from you. Duolingo lessons really paying off, man. You sound great.
I've fallen off, man.
I know you
have. Yeah. I do the match madness to keep my streak alive, and then I'm right off the app.
I respect the hustle for sure, or absence of said hustle. It's international break. Let's be real. Let's just be so real about something. Just not for me. I'm just not built for the international break life, but we do have some things that we can chat about. We did have some pretty big news stories over this international break so far that I think are worth mentioning. We're going to start off with probably the biggest. Paul Pogba heading to maximum federal prison for doping. He was found from the first match of the season against Udinese to have a abnormal testosterone level. He was one of the randomly selected players, and now has obviously developed into a much larger story. The penalty for this is not totally clear yet. In fact, it really isn't even resolved. He can have a retest to make sure that this was an accurate test, and then from there, we'll see what's up. He allegedly got some sort of medication or supplement from a doctor in the U.S., and that is believed to be the source of this positive result. This is a guy that obviously has struggled with injuries over the last few years, specifically last season too. I think it's important to remember that. I think steroids and human growth hormone, things like that, often get associated with building muscle. I think the more important and relevant thing is that they actually also can allow your body to recover faster and be more durable to endurance and high intense cardio. When there was, one day I think this story will come out about the Spanish doctor that was apparently very willing to name some of the Spanish national team players, and that there was a potential doping scandal, with the Pep Barcelona teams. Who knows? It's all hearsay at this point. But a lot of people did suspect that because of the amount of pressing that they were able to do. You've even seen it with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Mysteriously, Liverpool players develop asthma when they join the club and are able to get certain medication that probably helps with blood flow. Who knows? These on the margins advantages do exist everywhere in sport in general. This is not even just a football, soccer related issue. But for Pogba, this is a potentially career-ending thing. If he's suspended for multiple years, I think that's it. I don't. He's definitely not at the stage of his career either where I think he can kind of afford to not be playing every week. Certainly not with the France national team and how competitive, any spot in that setup is. And if he's found guilty of this and is suspended for what could be up to 4 years, maybe even for life, that's not great.
So wait, was he actually going to prison?
No, that was just a joke.
Okay.
I just thought Paul Pogba heading to maximum federal prison was a funny.
Well, bit. I remember we kind of texted about it, and you were like, he's going to jail, and I was like, I didn't know if you were joking or not, and I was just like, what? I didn't know if obviously you said,
it's fucked up. They put him in the cell right next to the Unabomber and Timothy McVeigh. It's pretty crazy, man.
Because you said that he got it from a U.S. doctor, right? So I didn't know if Italy had certain laws in place that
I think they're just going to kill him. Actually, I think they're just it's public execution if you can believe it.
Yeah, for your normal folk, that aren't, professional athletes or even college athletes, high school athletes, where you could potentially be drug tested for, growth hormones and doping and stuff like that. When you have an injury, the doctor prescribes you a steroid. Like I have partially torn rotator cuffs. So when I went to the orthopedic, he was like, all right, you got to give it time and just let it heal up. But for the time being, I'm going to put you on a steroid for a week and that should help. So, it's not like an uncommon thing. It's just when you're a professional athlete, you're held to a standard and you can't have any added advantages to said performances and said recovery, right? Like you mentioned, the best point is that it's not just, that you're building muscle and you're getting stronger and things like that. It's that it helps in speed up your recovery. Like you mentioned, Pogba is one of those guys whose career was riddled with injury. So, any little advantage that he could take to make sure he stays on the field, not like increase his performances, but like stay on the field. This move to Italy was supposed to be like the career revival thing, right? He's going back to his old club. He's going to go to a league where the style of play kind of fits him more and he can play into his later years, like a Luis Alberto and stuff like that. And you got caught. Sorry, bud. You take a risk. If you get caught, you got to pay the consequences. It's a shame, but amid everything else that's going on with Juventus, this is just adding on to the jokes that can be made to the club. Would you consider Juventus going through a quasi like banter era because of this? Like they're not like playing bad, right? They're not like a bad team, but like all the other stuff that surrounds the club currently kind of like is kind of putting them in this, weird aura of, whatever. Like they had the point deduction last year. They're not really they're not playing in Europe, right?
They're not allowed to play in Europe.
Yeah,
Banned from European competition this year. Yeah, it's been a weird year.
And there's stuff with Allegri coming out, and this stuff with Bonucci coming out, and it's crazy.
The Bonucci stuff, we'll see. He's apparently taking some kind of legal action against Juventus. I'm sure that'll totally pan out. This all happens amid rumors, and they've been denied. But of course, rumors that the Agnelli family might be selling the club. They've owned it for 100 years, which is pretty impressive when you think about it. Like,
when the mob's involved in accusations, it's always getting denied. It just happens,
Yeah. It's just I don't know if I'd say banter era necessarily, but it's been the most instability that I've seen from Juventus in a long time. I think since like the late 2000s.
Since they went down to Serie B.
Right. It's certainly there's more question marks about the club than I think there's really been in over like 13, 14 years at this point. It's been an entire like generation of good stuff from them and being dominant and making the smart right choices, and they've really stumbled away from that. And this would be tough, but I think for Juventus, they're probably hoping Pogba does fail this the reapplied test and they can get out of his contract because they're paying him a lot of money. And honestly, I think the cynical part of them is probably like, yeah, okay, cool, get him off the books because he has another 4 years on this deal. So we'll see how that develops. We'll see what happens with Paul Pogba, but it does add more intrigue to what has been just a wild season to start for Juventus. Anyway, I wanted to look. I didn't do this for Serie A because we only have 3 games. I say that as if there wasn't only 4 games in the Premier League to go off of. But I wanted to look at just some of the expected underlying numbers and see, who's kind of having a terrible time of it to start the year in terms of leaky defenses. And it's not going to be too surprising, I don't think, at some of these names. So, worst expected goals numbers to start the season in the Premier League. Fulham, 11.7 expected goals against through 4 games, and that comes up against 10 goals allowed. Not a good start.
Nope.
We talked about how they could have. Now they've had a hard schedule to start the year, right? That's a caveat here. And another team that's on this list has also had a very challenging schedule to start the season. But we talked a lot about we talked about regression candidates for the season. Fulham were one of these teams that really overperformed. Burnley really overperformed in expected goals allowed last year, and just did not foresee that continuing. You're starting to see, in early stages this season that carry on. Their performances haven't been bad. I'm not sounding alarm bells on Fulham, but you can see clearly defensively it's a little shaky this season, and they're going to struggle. Probably much more than they did last year, where it was a much more comfortable finish for them.
Yeah. I mean, bad look for some of the American nationals that play for Fulham right now, too. I'm pretty sure Tim Ream has an own goal this year as well, right? I think so.
He also has a goal scored. So, one out the door, one
cancels it.
And
cancel out.
His goal was against Man City. So,
you know what? In algebra, that's a cancel out. So,
Yeah.
Not
perfect seamless analogy right there. That's
not looking good for them at all. I mean, they're still below their expected goals allowed average, but they're very close. I mean, they're the best of the worst on this list. So there's your participation trophy, I guess, for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting 13th. It like I said, it has been doom and gloom for them to start the season, but I think just an early sign that things are going to be a little bit more uphill for them than last year. Sheffield United, one of the newly promoted teams, of course, 9.3 expected goals against. They've only actually allowed 7, so they've had a decent performance so far in terms of some of those actually not being converted. Again, through 4 games, it's not the most solid sample, but yeah, it's to be expected. This team again doesn't have a ton of talent, and this is what happens. Bournemouth, 9.1 expected goals allowed. They have actually only allowed 8, but they've had a really challenging start to the season. They played a lot of the top clubs in England already, so not too surprising to find them at this stage in the list. And it's a new manager, a manager that likes to attack a little bit, open things up. It's not shocking to me that they're a little open. This one maybe a little more so.
Yes.
Losing some control in the games a little bit potentially. Brighton with 7.8 expected goals allowed. They've actually allowed 6. I didn't associate De Zerbi and Brighton last year with top level defense and keeping teams out. So I guess it shouldn't be too surprising, but it is when you see them in the bottom 5 through the first few games. And again, they've had some challenging games so far this season, but you kind of hope that you're in a better defensively stable position. I think if Brighton don't finish in European spots, this could be part of the reason why.
I think losing Caicedo is a big, big reason why they may be struggling defensively. I mean, having that kind of midfielder as a disruptor and that first line of defense in front of your defensive line is a big thing. If you have a quality elite defensive midfielder to sit in front of your back line, it really makes a difference. You think of Fabinho at Liverpool or Rodri at City and guys like that who can sit in front of the defense and do their job. It makes a big difference. So losing out that type of player, selling him to Chelsea for a hefty sum, I just think that maybe they get some work done in the January transfer window that can help spur them forward and help with that. And like you said, they've had a tough start to the season. We'll see if that average kind of if they get a little more distance from that expected goal average as the season goes on.
Yeah. I think I was a little down on them coming into the season. I just felt like with European commitments this year, they're the type of team that I think will take it very seriously and will want to, kind of put their eggs in that basket if they're into the knockout stages. And they should. I think there's nothing wrong with that. West Ham had a similar approach last year, and it turned out wonderfully for them. And West Ham, ironically, were the team that did the most damage to Brighton so far this year. They beat them 3-1. That's where a good bit of these numbers are coming from. But it's
well, that's the thing, right? It's you focus on the European competition and just focus, and then when it comes to the league, your goal is just to stay alive and stay in the league. And then look, the next season you're not in Europe, but now you're teetering around the top of the table.
Yeah, I mean they're sixth right now. They've still been fine in the league. It's just they've been a little more open than I think maybe they want to be. And this is a team that I'm watching closely starting next week when they have European games to think about, because I think the biggest thing is that it's always a challenge when you have just that additional game to plan for. It's why I was down on them. I was down on Newcastle because I think it's just it's a huge gap that teams have to fill. The fifth spot here goes to Wolves, who have 7.8 expected goals allowed. They've actually allowed 8, so right around their expected goals number for them. A little bit surprising because I think Wolves in general we've associated with a pretty tight defensive structure, and that largely speaking, it's been scoring goals. It's always been a little bit of a challenge for them, even in their early days back in the Premier League, when they were doing quite well, finishing around mid-table. But so far this season, they again had a really, really hard schedule to start their year. You look at the quality of teams that they've played so far. I guess you could say it's not too surprising that they've had again challenges defensively. It doesn't get much easier because this weekend they play at Liverpool. They have, here's their opening fixtures. They had Manchester United, Brighton, Everton, and and then Crystal Palace. So all teams, I think, outside of Everton that you expect are going to be able to put up goals that have creative players. So it's been a challenging schedule, but a little bit of a departure for them in terms of how we think. There's a surprise team on this list, Dom, that was just outside this. I almost extended it to include them because I think it's funny and a fun talking point. Would you like to guess what team in the Premier League is in this 6th spot for expected goals allowed?
I'm gonna guess 2 different teams. Can I do 2?
Yeah, you can go 2, sure.
It's either Manchester United or Aston Villa.
Your first instinct was the correct one, although Aston Villa is not far off. Aston Villa, of course, had that terrible opening day against Newcastle, which I think really hurts them. But Manchester United, 6th worst expected goals so far in the league this year, with 7.4, and they've actually conceded 7. This has been a problem for them. We've talked about them in transition, especially. Transition defense has been a struggle area, and they've had players just cutting down the middle, breaking them open. And Onana has had some tough moments, let's say. I think he's had some goals let in that I think probably a little more savable than they ended up being. But almost included this list to have 6 teams just to get a little Manchester United slander on there, and then ended up doing it anyway. So honestly, like at the end of it all, I got what I wanted, while also still keeping some semblance of internalized righteousness, which is really what we're all looking for anyway.
Well, I mean, considering that it's a perfect segue for what we want to talk about next on the show. I mean, you might as well bring them up. I think it's hilarious to see the 2 heated rivals of the 2010s and 11th and 12th place in the table right now. When, teams with a stature like Manchester United and Chelsea are mid-table to lower half-table teams, and teams like Nottingham Forest, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Brighton, and West Ham are above them. I know, small sample size, 4 games into the season, but
it feels great. I love it.
Yeah,
There's
it's a beautiful sight. I love seeing stuff like this.
If this was 2017, I'd be like quoting Thanos about this bringing a smile to my face. And again, I just did it anyway. That's the theme for the show, is I'm pretending like I'm not saying these things when I actually am. Manchester United have also had a tumultuous, interesting, challenging, disappointing, morally reprehensible.
What is it with Manchester United wingers and domestic abuse? I don't get it, man. What's going on?
I don't know. This is a club that not even just with Anthony and Mason Greenwood. You go back to some of their big stars over the last few decades, and they've had issues. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. Anthony is currently suspended from the team due to allegations of domestic abuse from his partner. It's pending some kind of investigation. It's unclear what's happening here. I know that there's a police investigation going on into these incidents. I think we talked about it on the show that part of the potential problem, the alleged problem too, is that apparently Manchester United doctors may have also treated his partner for some of their injuries during all this. It's it's a complicated thing that seems outside of our view now. Like, it seems like this is handled by like relevant people. I don't want to speculate on it, but it is again another issue that they're going to have to contend with, similar to Greenwood, where now it is a distraction, and it is something that Ten Hag is going to have to answer questions about, and in the most cynical sense, this is a situation where now they're going to have to find a fill-in for Anthony's position, because he had been a starter this year. Like, every way you look at it, it's bad. It's a bad look, especially for a club that has had these concerns. And this Anthony stuff, again, I think I mentioned last time we talked, this was not new. We heard about this last year, and it sort of never really materialized, and now you're seeing it. I don't know if this is just two like extreme examples of whatever happened, right? Or if this speaks to maybe larger concerns about Manchester United and how they address character concerns, because that is a real thing that clubs do. They interview people from their personal lives. They want to know, is this person a good person? Do they work hard? Are they fair? Are they any issues to be concerned about? Off the field kind of stuff. So who knows? It's hard to say if maybe that stuff wasn't even present. Maybe they did do their due diligence, and this is just something they could not have foreseen. But it's not great for a club that has already dealt the entire summer with the Mason Greenwood issue, and now has somehow found their way into yet another sort of scandal.
Yeah, just gives Fabrizio Romano another topic to write about, because it seems that's all he's writing about now.
Like the inverse of Freddie Gibbs, and something to rap about it is something to tweet about, and it's instead of being Freddie Gibbs' smooth voice and really good lyricism, it's just the worst shit you've ever heard from some football agent. So. That one was just for you. I know you're a Freddie Gibbs man. That was
I like that one. That was a nice one.
Thank you. I had to make up for my Dem franchise boys. I had to.
So did you have that one in the back pocket, like sort of prepared, or
I'm telling
you did that on the spot?
You're not gonna believe me, and it's fair that you don't. That just came from like within me. I had no part of that was pre-planned. I applaud you. Off the top.
Love that. That was a great reference. Pulled that one out the bag. What's going on with Manchester United, man? I know you're a totally unbiased opinion. You love it, But,
I don't love the domestic abuse stuff.
No. Listen, I don't want to get canceled. Listen. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Wow, Dom, are you pro domestic abuse? That's really concerning. Jesus.
No. If you need help, go get it.
I know that's not what you meant. You don't have to. Everyone knows that's not what you meant. Yes, it is. I mean, listen, it's become a circus. The other story,
we were told, we were told they're back, right? Like this is supposed to be, Ten Hag's year. He has control of the team. He has the players he wants. They're going to be great, and the Mason Greenwood stuff still keeps coming out. And they dealt with that. Now they got the stuff with Anthony.
Well, they didn't even deal with the Mason Greenwood stuff either, which is
they
put him on a year-long loan. He's just going to be back next year, and they're going to have to face these same questions and the same screw. Like they really just
another one of those club statement tweets, X posts. I feel so wrong to say too. That's not a good X post. Yeah, Yeah, they've got some issues going on with Sancho now too. He's writing paragraphs about his situation and apologizing to the fans. And
so Sancho, this situation kind of boiled over in that Ten Hag has made some comments about him and said that something about essentially the quality of training, and that's why he wasn't featuring. Sancho tweeted that. He's been professional his entire time. He's worked hard during training. Thinks he deserves a chance, as I think most players probably feel. Who knows where the truth lies here, right? I'm willing to believe there might be some gray area here, but it is yet another issue. Jadon Sancho, I think it's maybe hard for people to remember this point, but was one of the most exciting players I've ever seen. He was amazing at Dortmund. Really wanted Liverpool to sign him. I was honestly disappointed when Manchester United got him, and has just really stagnated. It's hard to say what that is exactly. Even just his burst is not there anymore. And part of that
is very weird.
is no regular playing time, I think naturally, a player like him too that likes the ball at his feet is a very like touch-based player.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not playing regularly, can affect your performances for sure. For his sake, I think a different situation would really help him. It's probably going to have to wait, obviously, until January for this to get resolved. Maybe it can even get resolved this international break. Maybe they have some kind of conversation. I don't know, come to some kind of understanding. But there does seem to be some tension, at least a rift between Ten Hag and Jadon Sancho, and that's not ideal, especially, again, if Antony's going to be missing a big amount of time here. Being able to find some sort of, like, Jadon Sancho resurgence would be great. I just... With this story, it doesn't feel like that's forthcoming, and it feels like this could be maybe some of the final chapters of his time at Manchester United.
Who needs a right winger? That's the thing. I would have been all for him at Milan, but now that time has passed.
He'd played like a false 9 this summer too in preseason.
Yeah,
that's what was bizarre. Is like that seemed like an interesting role for him potentially. I don't know. Like
he's been utilized in so many different positions. He can play on both wings. He can play sort of as a striker, but like you said, a false 9. He can play as a 10. Like he's a very like Swiss Army knife type of attacking player, but he just doesn't get consistent time. And I mean, you brought up his time at Dortmund. Yeah, he was electric. I mean, this guy was so much fun to watch, and he's fallen out of favor in his club. He's fallen out of favor with the national team. And it's just, I don't know where he needs to end up to help get his career back on track.
Yeah.
Do you think that staying in the Prem is a good choice for him? Or do you think that going abroad to a different league would be even better?
Him and Kai Havertz should just head back to the Bundesliga. I think that'd be great. I think, I think there are just some leagues that suit player styles a little better, and maybe Jadon Sancho in transition, and there's a lot of transition in Bundesliga. Maybe that's where it might be better for him. I think he could succeed in the Premier League, though. He definitely has the talent. Like the talent is there with him, no question. And again, we don't know. I'm willing to give him some rope and say that maybe there are circumstances. Maybe he's also not working hard. It's impossible to know, right? Like there's so much that we won't see, that we won't know, and that we won't understand. I don't want to make too many claims about like him being washed or whatever, but like I do think just a better situation is probably best for everyone. It seems like, but it's another transfer that Manchester United have really gotten wrong. Antony, his situation, but even outside of Antony, has not been impressive enough to justify his price tag so far. Harry Maguire, who they tried to ship off this summer and then didn't want to go, is now their 5th choice center back. Large fee for him, obviously. And, Jadon Sancho brought in with a lot of hype. Don't blame him for paying the price, but it has not panned out well. Like it's been a recurring theme for them, and that's, I think, a frustrating aspect for Manchester United fans.
Yeah, the coach in me wants to kind of believe Ten Hag, because like obviously I don't coach football, but when the players are at practice and they're working, they think that they're working hard, right? They're pushing themselves. But to the coach, it doesn't look like that. Like I have a couple players like that. I see, them at practice, and I think it looks to me like they're dogging it, or they're not trying as hard. They're not sprinting as hard as they can. They're not getting stuck in as to challenges as much as they can. But, when I have like the team talk at the end and I say these types of observations, I can see, some of their facial expressions and things, and they seem confused or they seem like disrespected because I'm saying that, and they feel that they're working really hard. Maybe it's one of those situations. Like Ten Hag has this sort of expectation he wants from Sancho, and he's not seeing it with his own eyes, even though Sancho feels like he is doing everything that he can to prove his worth to the coach and to the team. And there's just some sort of like loss in translation between the two. And that's sort of like a telltale sign of like, it's time to move on. You got to go somewhere else and try to revive, the hype that was around you.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see. And Ten Hag has notoriously been a kind of no-nonsense guy. Like, even like benched Rashford one game last year because he was late to a meet, like a guy that doesn't seem to mess around. So who knows? It's really hard to say. Moving on, It is the international break. We do have the European Championship qualifiers going on, and since we primarily cover England and Italy, England has been doing very well. Italy is in the same group as England for the Euro qualifiers. Italy's been doing not as well. They had a disappointing draw against North Macedonia.
Why do they always give them an issue? They were the same when they kept them out of the World Cup. Yeah,
kept them out of the World Cup, and they did have a nice rebound against Ukraine. Very important game against Ukraine, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really big win there. Now they still have more games left in the European qualification. We're not quite at the crunch stage yet. We'll get to that in November, but little concerned about Italy. Donnarumma not putting in his best performances for the national team. And it would be a real bummer, especially for the defending champions, to not be back at the Euros.
I don't understand how, if you win the Euros, you're not just automatically invited back as the defending champions. Why do you need to qualify again? You won you won the whole thing.
I definitely see the merit in what you're saying.
It's like if you win the Europa League, you're automatically in Champions League. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think there's some merit in what you're saying. Not gonna totally disagree with you, but the group is England, Italy, Ukraine, North Macedonia, and Malta. It is a group Italy should be advancing out of.
Yes.
Now they're not going to catch England. England have a 6-point lead on them in the group, but I do feel that Italy, some concern here because they got themselves a little bit out of the hole with that win against Ukraine, but they still have a tough road to go. And they play Ukraine in one of the penultimate matches, which could decide, who's advancing. Looking up the exact date for that game, they play North Macedonia again on the final game week, so it could be yet another repeat of what we were talking about with them keeping them out of the World Cup, and they play England in October. During that break, I just think there's real opportunity here for Italy to have a very, very disappointing crash out. There's quite a few teams that I think are sort of on the verge here. Some of the bigger European nations that we don't think of as being on the chopping block that could realistically be on the chopping block. Spain teetering a little bit in their group. Scotland leads that group. They're perfect. 5 games played, 5 wins in that group. Norway is just 2 points behind Spain. The Netherlands level on points with Greece. They have a game less played, but still a little bit of a concern. Netherlands have missed out on major tournaments recently. Where else do we got? Poland, pretty off of it in their qualification group. Sweden could miss out. I don't consider them one of the bigger nations, but typically do see them find their way to the European Championships. Group H is interesting. Slovenia and Denmark tied at 13 points, and then Finland, Kazakhstan tied with 12 points in 3rd and 4th. That is a group that could definitely be going to the final day for sure. Switzerland looks like they might get a hold on their group, but Romania, Israel right behind, pretty close there, and Portugal. Perfect 6 from 6, 24 goals scored, 0 goals allowed so far in European qualification for them. They've had no issues with their group, so something interesting to keep our eyes on for the international breaks, in the European realm, and we'll see if Italy disappoint yet again. I hope they don't. I'd like to see them at the Euros again. England obviously have a very good squad, very good team, and I think will be one of the favorites this summer to lift the Euros.
So when first off, congratulations to England. I think it was the first international team to reach, 600 or 400. It was one of those two numbers. I know it was an even number. It was like 600 wins in all competitions or something like that. So congrats to them on that. Talking about the Italian national team, you have your household names, but they're now on the later ends of their career. You've got your Ciro Immobile, who's still up front, but I mean, they have 7 points out of the games they played, and he only has 1 goal. That's kind of concerning, right? When they've got some young guys, but nobody in this team screams out to me, like Jorginho and Verratti. Like Verratti's an underrated baller, but like he's on the tail end of his career now. Like he's starting to get outside of his prime, and it's you've got guys like Scamacca and Berardi who you expect to play well, and Raspadori, and it's just it's not an inspiring team. There's not a lot about Italy right now that's like super inspiring, and I hate to say that, but that's what I get from them.
Yeah, I'd say like high-end elite talent, they don't really have it at the moment.
Yeah.
I think Bastoni is borderline for me. Barella is, I think, probably their most elite player. Like he's, one of the better midfielders in Europe.
I don't even know if I consider Chiesa like super high-end elite. Like he's right outside that.
Is not elite.
Yeah.
But he's a very good player. Di Lorenzo, one of the better fullbacks in Europe, I think you could say.
Spinazzola. Before his injury, before that injury,
Spinazzola is a little overrated for my money, personally.
Fair enough.
Donnarumma, if you can get his shit together, sure. In general, the midfield's interesting. For Tezzi, Locatelli, Barella, I think that's probably what you would even see at a potential Euros. I think that's a good midfield. It's not great, but there's some potential there, and I think for Tezzi especially, a full season at Inter, higher quality opposition and team, maybe see some improvement there. Who knows? That leads us into a good segue, though.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
You're gonna ruin my segue, Dom.
Do your segue.
No,
do your segue. No, I don't want to ruin it.
I'm not gonna speak.
I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it.
Then everyone's just gonna listen to silence.
No, I'm gonna bring it back at the end of the show. Don't worry about it. This is what you want to put the listeners through, Matthew. You're gonna be this hard-headed. I can't believe this, man. I really can't. Really. I'm sorry for ruining your shine. I'm sorry.
You didn't ruin my shine. It's just
yes, I did. You had a very good segue, and I ruined it.
Say what's on your chest.
No, I'm not going to do it now. You want to be stubborn? I'm being stubborn as well. Go ahead.
Two stubborn Italian men. All right, segue. Milan derby this weekend, Dom.
Yeah.
Inter versus Milan. Stakes. I shouldn't say have never been higher because they were higher like 5 months ago when they were in the Champions League semifinal. Like honestly, like this.
Within the league.
Yeah, probably. Inter have largely dominated the recent fixtures. They won 5 of the last 6 in all the competitions against Milan. Milan, though, this season have looked very good, especially offensively. Inter this season have looked very good offensively, especially Lautaro Martinez, one of the most informed players in Serie A. Inter have done well, I think, to limit opposition chances and goal-scoring opportunities. Milan, not as rigid and stern at the back, but it's going to be a great game no matter what. This fixture has perennially given us a lot of good entertainment. The Champions League games were not as good, but anytime they play domestically, I feel like it's always a pretty entertaining one.
Yeah,
gauging your panic, anxiety, fear, stress level for this one.
It's like an 8.5 because there's no Tomori. Tomori got a red card in the last game, so that's a little concerning. But the way that the midfield has been playing, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has really made a name for himself as a rock in that midfield. No Benacer sucks, but I think that Krunic has kind of come into his own as like a player that can kind of fit in there. Like he's obviously not a world beater, but having Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Reinders on both sides of him kind of helps him because he doesn't have to do as much as he was used to. The forwards, Giroud is having a renaissance here, even though obviously a lot of his goals are scored from the penalty spot, but what he does in his link-up play and kind of stretching the defense with some of the runs he makes, even though they're not fast, but it allows Leao to get in one-on-one situations. It allows Pulisic to get in one-on-one situations. It allows, Teo to kind of burst up the field a little bit and help out with that. My anxiety is high. I think it's a 3-2 win for Milan. But Yeah, it's going to be a fun game. If they lose, I'd be disappointed, but it's not the end of the world as long as it's a good game. I just don't want to see Inter come out and completely dominate Milan, because Inter always brings it. You have a guy like Hakan Çalhanoğlu who plays with a chip on his shoulder every time they play Milan because of how the fans treated him. When he was playing for the other side, and you've got some other guys on that Inter team that absolutely just hate Milan. I hate watching DiMarco play because he's such a dangerous fullback. For as good as Teo is, DiMarco is like almost right there. Talking about the Italian national team, that's somebody who I really like on that team as well. He's a really, really good fullback. And it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be obviously the headlining game of the weekend in Serie A, and it's always a fun one to watch. So, if you have time to watch that this weekend, make sure that you do, because you will not be disappointed by that game.
Yeah, definitely. It is a must watch every time. Serie A is another game that's also pretty interesting too. You have Juventus, Lazio this weekend to look forward to. Fiorentina, Atalanta. That's probably going to be a pretty good one as well. England, a little disappointed this weekend in their return. It's not a triumphant return. You do have Manchester United versus Brighton. That could be a good one. West Ham versus Manchester City. That one has been interesting in years past. That one has provided some good entertainment. West Ham have played City as well as you probably can. Newcastle versus Brentford. Battle of the like hipster kind of teams of the last few seasons. But yeah, the big thing to look forward to is we're back with Champions League next week. That's exciting. It feels like just feels like the marker of when the season starts to get very serious. Next Tuesday we have Milan versus Newcastle. Great. It's a great thing to go from a big emotional derby to to hosting Newcastle though. Catching maybe a little bit a flat foot. You got PSG versus Dortmund. That's a pretty fun one. That's on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Bayern Munich versus Manchester United, the big one of the round, I would say. For other England teams, you got Arsenal versus PSV on that same day. That's a pretty fascinating one. Man City played Red Star Belgrade. Come on, let's not get crazy. Lazio, Atletico Madrid. So we've got good ones lined up. Looking forward to it. Dom, anything to say before we get out of here? You better have something to say.
Oh, I have two things. So this first one, this is what I wanted to talk about when we were talking about the Italian national team. I saw a tweet today. It was from, I guess, some sort of Inter Milan Twitter personality. Obviously, it's one of those ones where it's not their actual face as the profile picture or stuff like that. Translated, because it was tweeted in Italian. This is what the tweet said. Obviously, he's not pleased with the performances that the Italian national team has put up. And he said, never having participated in the slave trade for Italy is a problem. It acted as a natural selector for those with a physical structure unsuitable for heavy work. This is why the English, French, and Germans inherited Bellingham, Mbappe, and Rudiger. And we inherited this stuff with a picture of Gnonto.
Wow. That is,
And then he kind of like doubles down and goes, the point is not that Gnonto is black. It's the point that he is short and fat, and that's not racism, but body shaming. I don't think he's fat. I think he's like pretty strong. Like he's like an Adama Traore type of player, but like a
little like muscular. That's
crazy, unhinged tweet that I saw this morning.
That is the new Twitter. Comedy is legal on Twitter again. Just so
the comedy, right? Like, dude, what? That's crazy. Wrong. First off, but. Yeah, I think that Italian fans, like whenever there's a black Italian player, I do think that they get a lot of unfair treatment in their performances. As you saw it with Mario Balotelli all the time. Granted, Balotelli's off-pitch antics kind of fueled the fire when he played in Italy, and I mean it happened in England as well. But there was always a lot of unfair treatment for him, and you see it in Serie A all the time. I mean, hell, even the league did a anti-racism campaign where they said we are all monkeys. I mean, come on. Like, I don't understand how like the average Italian football fan like never ceases to like amaze me with like their new way of like being racist without like realizing they're being racist.
It's a problem in
I don't
Europe
get it.
in general. Not that America is like the
we're not
the
we're,
front
yeah,
runner
yeah.
of clearing up racism, and
You
but
go on X these days. It's
I will
Jesus.
say though, some of the things you hear in stadiums chanted in Europe would get you violently
Yikes.
attacked in America for saying that's all. That's
100%.
I think.
What happened to
there are
Danny
some
Alves?
differences.
Danny Alves wanted to rush the stands.
Yeah,
It's
a little. No one's throwing banana peels at players in America. As
hell
much.
no.
But get to your second point.
My second point is a very quick point, moot point, but the U.S. men's national team played Oman. Crazy game, right? Wonderful game, but there were some positives. They won 5-0. Balogun scored. Love seeing that. Pepe scored. Love seeing that. But what I wanted to talk about was something that I don't know if you saw my tweet, but there was a video of like some of the players getting off the bus.
Just throw it in the bag.
Yeah, so like Yunus Musa's getting off the bus, and he's got his little like designer bag, and all the players are getting. Anthony Robinson's getting off. He doesn't have a bag. Another player's getting off the bus. He has his designer bag. Christian Pulisic gets off the bus. He has like a Milan store plastic bag with the crest on it, and another Milan like Twitter member was like, "Yo, look at him still rocking that Milan plastic bag. He absolutely loves playing for us." Like, and Christian Pulisic didn't have the best showing last night, but there's speculation. People are saying like, oh, he's trying to make sure he stays healthy for the league, especially with this game versus Inter coming up. He's been performing really well in Serie A, so he's trying to make sure he has that longevity and that consistency in the first team, which I can't blame him. But I also did want to say, him and Musa kind of have that clout now on the U.S. men's national team. Like, we play at one of the biggest clubs in the world. I'm sorry, Tim Weah. I know you play for Juventus, but
I think Pulisic has had that.
Well, he's played for Chelsea, but
even Dortmund, he had. It's a reasonable amount.
Milan is a bigger club. I'm sorry, I gotta say.
Oh, then that. Dortmund, sure. I'm gonna give you that.
Then Chelsea as well. I'm sorry. Bigger club. 7 Champions Leagues. Come on, we.
Whoa! I'm not. Oh, hey. Easy.
Listen, I mean, you're a Liverpool fan, so I mean, you're just being subjective on the show right now, so I get it. Or sorry, objective. Excuse me, but anyway, I was saying like other guys like Anthony Robinson and Tim Ream can't really say shit. I know they play in the Premier League, but they play on Fulham, and we talked about Fulham earlier. So you're
gonna disrespect full America, huh? That's really messed up of you.
Hey, listen, if you're American and you end up saying you play in the Premier League, but then say you play for Fulham, I mean, it's kind of like obvious then, it's.
You're gonna disrespect Clint Dempsey like that.
Well, no, Clint Dempsey.
You're out of pocket right now,
No. I'm not disrespecting Clint Dempsey. He was.
You just did. You literally just did.
No,
you just did.
No, Clint Dempsey was the man. He put Fulham on his back. All right, there's a difference. Tim Ream is scoring own goals.
Don't hate on Tim Ream. Pep Guardiola told him if he was 10 years younger, he would sign him and play. Why are you hating on Tim Ream? Why is Tim Ream catching strays? I don't understand this.
I don't know. I'm waffling now, dude.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. It's been a long week. It's only Wednesday, so.
Brother, it's been a long lifetime at this point. We'll be back next week, wrapping up this weekend's actions. Maybe Dom will be in a better mood, a good mood, a bad mood. Who knows? It's a pivotal weekend for him. And Tuesday, pressure's off for Liverpool. It's just Wolves, and then we got Europa League. It is what it is. I don't have to stress Tuesdays and Wednesdays anymore. That's a nice fact of life for me. But we'll be back to wrap it all up for you next week. Until then, see you later.